Hi everyone, it's Kelsey again, and this is our unit review to the art of argument. We've learned a lot over the past 6 weeks, and you've practiced many of the same techniques that famous writers and speakers have used in their own persuasion. Now, here's your opportunity to put all of your knowledge together into one place as you write a persuasive speech yourself. In this video, we'll review important rhetorical terms, break down the persuasive speech prompt, and discuss strategies for getting started on your final assignment of English 2. By the end of today's lesson, you should be ready to begin drafting your persuasive speech. Let's get started. Let's think all the way back to our first video. Remember that time you came home after curfew? Yikes. I hope you've learned your lesson since then. You now know that you had absolutely zero chance of convincing your mom to buy you that video game because you've learned about kairos, how the timeliness of the moment can have a massive effect on your rhetorical success. But you've also learned that rhetoric is about much more than having good timing. It also involves building your credibility, making logical arguments, and generating emotions. And then there's the rhetorical situation to consider. The writer, exigence, context, audience, message, and purpose. And then there's knowing when to use the right diction, the right syntax, evidence, commentary. We've learned so much. Gosh, I'm a great teacher. Let's take a deep breath. Rhetoric is complex, but we've also had a lot of practice. Let's review some of these terms, and by the end of this lesson, you're going to feel ready to show that final assignment who's boss. Imagine the situation with your mom again. Hold on, not that version of mom, but this one. You know, the version where you came home on time? Aw, you did learn your lesson. Good job. Suddenly, the kairos is better and everything changes. Of course, you still need to apply rhetorical strategies like ethos, logos, and pathos, but your odds have now improved drastically. Big categories like the 3 appeals are a great place to start, so let's begin there. You're ready to ask your mom for that video game. How could you build your ethos, your credibility, for this situation? Maybe taking out the garbage or straightening up your room is a good first step. You need to prove how this video game won't be a distraction to your schoolwork and other responsibilities. Then there's logos. How could you build a logical argument? Think about this formula. If X is true, then Y must be true as well. Okay, so then the logical argument must say, if I want this video game, then what? What are you willing to offer in exchange for it? Will you do more chores? Will you offer to help pay for it? Will you tell her it could be an early birthday present? Basically, how will you convince her that buying a new video game makes logical sense? And finally, how will you appeal to pathos, her emotions? You have to be careful with this one. Laying on emotions too dramatically can backfire. Fabricating emotions is, at best, unpersuasive. At its worst, it's unethical. So you have to be honest about your emotions. Similarly, think about her emotions involving video games. How can you address her concerns? Is this the game that all your friends are playing right now and you don't want to be left out? Or do you need to build up a better reputation for managing your time before you even approach her with this topic? Now, start to think about more specific techniques that might be beneficial here. Pause the video and write down how you would apply 3 of the techniques that you see on the screen. For example, you could use antithesis. On one hand, I know this video game is expensive. On the other hand, I can mow the grass all summer to help pay for it. Or you could try bandwagon. Everyone's talking about this game, Mom. I just don't want to be left out. You'll notice how you can work with big ideas, then refine them with more specific techniques. So with this in mind, let's take a look at that prompt for your persuasive speech and see how we can apply some of these same strategies to your final assignment. The prompt asks you to respond to this question. What are the responsibilities of citizens, if any, to their community or nation? That's a really big question. In order to answer it well, you'll need to do some brainstorming. In this week's PDF, you'll find some graphic organizers to arrange your thoughts to this question. Use these to reflect on what you think your own role and responsibilities are in society, And then ask yourself if everyone should have the same responsibilities as you do. Maybe you feel like your role and everyone else's should be actively seeking positive change. Maybe you agree with Roosevelt that your first responsibility is taking care of your family and any extra energy should be directed toward improving your community. Maybe you don't feel like any of it is your responsibility, that the only thing we should focus on is improving ourselves, and if we all do that, then society will follow. And importantly, maybe you feel like it's somewhere in the middle of all these things, or that different scenarios call for different levels of responsibility. Thinking through these perspectives will help you figure out exactly what you believe, how you can support those beliefs, and how you plan to argue them. Then, I want you to challenge yourself. Consider arguments against your own points. What might someone say if they disagreed with you? What good arguments of theirs should you address with a carefully worded counterclaim? And importantly, what good arguments of theirs do you sort of agree with? How do you need to adapt your speech to reflect your evolving perspective? Now let's talk requirements. First, you should write between 750 and 1,000 words, which represents a speech of about 5 to 7 minutes in length. It seems like a long time to talk, but it's a big question to answer, and the time will go quickly. You'll be expected to incorporate quotes or paraphrases from some of the texts we've read in this unit. Think about which arguments best fit with your perspective. Then consider how you might tie those together with your own thoughts so you can create strong commentary, making your voice the center of the argument. And while you won't be required to deliver this speech to anyone, doing so will help you find issues with your speech and see where you could be more persuasive. So let's apply some of your mad skills to this prompt, starting with the rhetorical situation. Some of these are already set for you, such as the writer, exigence, and purpose, but you will want to consider how to address the others. For example, what is the context of the situation right now? What are some events or concerns happening out in the world that can make your argument more relevant to the kairos of our current moment? Who will your audience be? If you plan to deliver your speech to a friend or family member, you should probably consider their likely beliefs about this question. If you don't intend to deliver your speech, imagine your audience as a group of people who disagree with your perspective but are open to changing their minds. Likewise, consider the audience's perception of you as the writer. Will they think your answer to this question is too idealistic, too unrealistic, or even too self-centered? Will they believe your opinion on this isn't informed enough because you don't really know about living in the, quote, real world yet? Ouch. But these are important questions to ask. If you don't ask them and then adjust your rhetoric to address them, then it's just like walking in late for curfew. You've got to be honest about the rhetorical situation if you hope to be persuasive. Finally, you've got your message to think about. By this point in the planning process, you will probably have the general idea of what point you want to argue, and now you just need to flesh it out. You're going to do that by starting with big categories like ethos, logos, and pathos, just like we did with your mom in that video game. But still, where do you start? How do you know where to put the right words in the right places? A good approach is to simply write a first draft with no concern about persuasive techniques or rhetorical devices. All you should focus on in the first draft is making sure your message is clear and trying to organize your thoughts logically. Look for inspiration from our example text over the course of the unit. Maybe adding a quote from Elizabeth Cady Stanton or Frederick Douglass at just the right time will give your argument added credibility and be the perfect evidence for your own commentary. Then, as you revise your draft, you can look for places that are not very persuasive, or places you want to emphasize for your audience. Those could be prime spots for your newfound rhetorical skills. Begin with the 3 appeals and then get more specific from there. Not all of these attempts will work, by the way. You'll have to try them on like you're shopping for new clothes. You know, the first argument fit okay, but it wasn't really your style. And the second argument looked nice, but it didn't fit at all. See how I used an extended metaphor there? Even I am getting practice. The more arguments and techniques you try on, the more likely it is that you'll find the one that does fit perfectly, and at the same time, it works with your style. It's all about practice, repetition, and revision until you've found the perfect fit. It's been a joy talking about rhetoric with you. Now go out there and use your new powers to make the world a more persuasive place. Bye. Hey.